So now I want to take a step back and get the out-of-band management connectivity going to the leaf switches as well as the spine switches. And this used to be a really hard process. And I shouldn't say hard, it wasn't hard, but it used to be a lot more steps, I should say. They have greatly simplified it with the version of ACI that I'm actually running here, where it's kind of like a pseudo wizard. So let's embiggen the screen here so that you guys can see it. And I'm not doing this embiggening because of any trickery. Basically, it's really hard to see if I leave myself in that frame. So what I want to do is show you guys how to configure the out-of-band management network particularly. And this is useful for a number of reasons. One, we can now SSH to the leaf and spine switches. It's also going to be how the APIC talks to vCenter. So when we actually connect to a VMM domain. So where we configured the tenant army before, we're not going to do our management configuration from within that specific tenant. Remember when we looked at all the different tenants that were within the system, there was a couple default: common, infrastructure, and management. We're going to do the out-of-band management configuration through this management tenant. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that guy. Now, check this out. If we go down, I think there is even a quick start way to do this. Let's see. No, I guess not. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down within this tenant management down to node management addresses, okay? And we're just going to right click on node management addresses and say create node management address. We could do static node management addresses. I'm just going to create a pool, okay? I found that that's a little bit easier. So what we're going to do here is we'll give this guy a name. It can really be anything. Again, I like to be quite literal within ACI. So I typically go in here and I'll make it something like OOB, management policy. So I'm gonna actually use that. I'm gonna say OOB MGMT policy. And I'm going to just assign this instead of to actually all. We're just going to do our three, because the APIC already has an out-of-band management IP address. So I'm just going to select those three and say out-of-band addresses. Notice once we click that, right, as soon as we click that, we get this extra section down here at the bottom. It's asking for an out-of-band management EPG, and the EPG, remember, is an endpoint group. So we're going to go ahead and just select the default out-of-band management EPG, which is already built for us within there. We also have an out-of-band gateway that we need to create. So I'm going to say 172.16.31.254/24, and let's just skip that because I don't think I actually have that gateway configured anywhere. So I'm just going to skip the gateway validation. Normally we'd leave this checked. And then which out-of-band IPs do you want to use? So I'm only going to use 3 here. Again, you'd want to leave this big enough to accommodate your full-size fabric. But what I'm going to do is say 172.16.31.85 through 172.16.31.87. So now we have 85, 86, and 87 that are applicable for use within there. You can also enforce some access restrictions if you want. And what you could do here is we could come down here and write a contract basically saying, only these subnets are allowed to connect up to these out-of-band IPs. I'm actually not going to enforce any restrictions on that, so I'm going to go ahead and unselect that, and we'll just click submit. This will assign new management IP addresses, so I'll just say yes. And so this was way easier than it used to be. Again, that used to be, we used to have to create the management policy. We'd have to come up here and create the IP address pools. So now we can see that we've got an automatically created pool up here for us from 3185 to 3187. Had we created a contract down here, we would have saw an out-of-band contract created. We didn't do any access restrictions, so it didn't do that. But what we should see now is if we go to, let's actually go back to Fabric, and we'll go to Inventory. and we'll take a look at our leafs, we should see these guys now have, let's see, a management IP address. So this guy, actually leaf 1, got 172.16.31.87, as you guys can see right there. If we look down here to leaf 2, come on, there we go. We go over here to leaf 2, we should be able to see that he too has a management interface, 86, which would mean that the other one was 87, so the spine is .85. So to kind of test this out, what we can do is we can actually open up PuTTY and try to SSH to those guys. So we'll say 172.16.31.87. This was actually leaf 1, so let's go ahead and save that. And say open. And we do get an SSH key, so we'll go ahead and say yes. And we'll log in. The credentials are just going to be admin and then the password that you use during the bootstrapping process. And we can see that now we're in leaf 1. We could try another PuTTY session. We could say 172.16.31.86. Again, SSH. This guy was leaf 2. We'll save that and open. We get the key. Try logging in. Leaf 2. Let's make sure we can get to the spine. 16.31.85. And this guy's going to be our spine. We'll save that and try to open. And we get it. Okay. So we'll log in. Admin. And we're able to hit our spine. So we can see now that we have provisioned out-of-band management connectivity to the 3 devices within our fabric. Again, we already had an out-of-band management IP through the bootstrapping process on the APIC, and that's actually how we're accessing the APIC through its GUI, right? So this is the out-of-band management IP address that guy is actually using. So this is pretty beneficial for us because now we have that SSH access to get in and actually talk to these leaf and spine switches. So we're going to be using this connection a lot now, that's why I save those sessions, for verification purposes. Once we get endpoints connected up, once we start pushing policy out, we're going to be able to see those endpoints actually connected, and I use those SSH sessions a lot for verification purposes. So again, this is one of the first things that I typically do when I go out there and usually showing a customer how to implement ACI.